Okay, here we are. We're gonna finish up this Quilting 101. We're putting the binding on. So I already put most of the binding on the quilt, so you didn't have to watch me do that. But here's how you put your binding strips together. You have your one binding strip from the left, your second binding strip you're adding, line up your ends, pin them if you need to, I don't. Put it right underneath. If you are like us and you have that Bernina, you know that this point and the point where the single hole stitch plate is your straight line. So I'm sewing from the upper left hand to the lower right hand side. If you do it the other way, it won't fold out right. So I'm sewing like that. And again, I sewed, this is from the left side coming out straight. This is my next strip I'm putting on from the upper left to the lower right. And then you're gonna take your scissors and trim off to 1/4 inch.
Lisa, what happens if they sew the opposite way?
If you sewed this way, it would open like this, and it would be very strange. Okay, now you put all your strips together like that. Then you're gonna come to your pressing station, which I kind of have set up here. Press your seam out. Then you're gonna fold it in half, wrong sides together, and press it. And that gives you your binding. If you remember your binding strips, we cut at 2.5 inches. So these are 2.5 inch binding strips. That is going to be important in just a minute. You got to remember how big your binding strips are. Okay. And there we go. Okay. All right. So I have my binding all done. Sometimes it's easy to kind of roll them up. I usually just throw them over my shoulder. When you start your binding, for what I'm going to show you, you want to leave a tail about that long hanging off.
10 inches?
About 6.
6.
6 inches. 1/4 inch seam all the way around, and I'm going to show you how to do the corner right now. So go back up here where I've got 3 corners done already. We're going to show you this. No, I don't. I got 2 corners done. We're going to show you 2 corners. How about them apples? Okay, so I'm starting my 1/4 inch seam. I'm sewing right along. If you want to pin this, do that. If you don't. It's up to you. Okay, I know because of my foot that right there is a 1/4 inch. So I am going to sew until the end of that foot is right at the edge of my fabric. See that? That means I'm a 1/4 inch away from the outside of the fabric. I'm going to do a reverse stitch. I'm going to cut my thread. Now, I'm going to take my binding. I'm going to fold it like this at a diagonal angle, making sure this is perpendicular to this. So I want it nice and straight, so I have an L shape. I'm going to finger press that, squish it down pretty good, and then I'm going to flip it back down like this. And I'm going to finger press it again. So I have a diagonal, I finger pressed, I flip it down, I finger press, I put that underneath my foot, start right at the edge, 1/4 inch seam, and do this side. And my sandwich is dragging on me. There. There. I was getting off my 1/4 inch seam. My quilt was dragging me off. here I come up to another corner. I'm gonna stop. Maybe one more stitch there. 1/4 inch away, reverse, cut my thread, make a perpendicular diagonal angle, finger press, flip it over, finger press, and start at the corner. Now here's where I'm going to show you how to join the edges, and I'm going to show you the fancy way. This is a beginning class, but we're still going to do our binding the easy, fancy way because it just comes out nicer. Okay, so you remember I left the tail at the beginning. I'm going to stop, I don't know, probably 8 inches away from my tail. And this is the magic. So I have 2 tails. I'm going to make sure this goes across the middle. It does. I'm going to take my right hand tail. I have my opening. Here's my opening. That's the center of my opening. I'm going to cut my right hand tail right in half at the center of the opening. And then I'm going to lay the left hand tail over it. We know this is 2.5 inch binding. So I'm going to take my ruler, put it on there. I'll put it on right side. So you have 1, 2, so I'm going to put that up. And I'm going to cut, I'm even with the end on the right side, putting my left on. I'm going to cut at the 1/2 inch mark on the left hand side.
The 2.5 inch.
I'm sorry, 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch. Sorry, thank you. So now I have a 2.5 inch overlap of these 2 pieces. Here's where the stuff you have to remember comes in. This is very easy. It's very, very easy. You're going to take the left side, open it out, lay it flat. You're going to take the right side, open it out, rotate it clockwise. You get that? Rotate it like a clock. Open it out, rotate it like a clock. You're going to put it up here just like you joined all of the rest of them. Your binding strips, and it's a little fussy. I didn't leave quite enough space between the one side, but that's okay. It's a little bit fussy, so you have to kind of finagle things around to make it work, but I'm going to line that up just like I did the others. So I'm starting at the upper left-hand intersection. I'm going down to the lower right-hand intersection. I sew right through that point, cut, and like magic, my binding meets.
And you always test it before you cut.
You always test it before you cut. So I will now take this.
Ask us how we know.
Yeah, because you sewed it on backwards. It took a long time to figure out how to do that. Now, all I have to do is get that back underneath the foot. I would press it, but we'll just do this. Get that back underneath there. I'm gonna have a little bit of play on this side, no big deal. You won't notice the difference. And voila. When I fold it over, I don't have a real thick join. It's nice and smooth. So now the next step is we're going to take this, we're going to press it out really well. And you see how the miter came out in the corner? Can you see the little diagonal there?
It's kind of hard to see it.
Because it's black, yeah. Shoot. Well, anyway, you're going to press this all out. And then from this side, you'll pull it to your seam, and you're just going to whip stitch right across there. When you get to your corners, you're going to reverse this. So you're going to fold it like that, and then you're going to pull that in. So you'll have your miter on this side.
It's hard to see it, it's
Yeah.
really black.
It's very black. You're gonna have your miter on this side and your miter on this side. But the way to remember that is when you're coming from this way, you're gonna sew right to left. Fold it out like this. Finger press like we did when we were putting it on the other way. So see how I've got the diagonal line coming up from the corner? Then fold that down, just like we did the other way. And then it gives you a nice miter. Your fold is on this side on the back. Your fold is on the other side in the front, and that makes your corners lay flat.
And do you take a stitch up in,
You know, I never do.
okay.
If you're doing quilt competitions, apparently they check to make sure you've sewn your binding miters down, which is very strange to me that somebody would take the time to do that, but whatever. If you're going to a show, then yeah, I never mess with it. But yeah, I usually do take a couple extra tack stitches right in the corner to make sure they don't come loose, but I have never stitched up. But yes, if you're going to a show, do that. And then you'll get nice, sharp, mitered corners. Just whip stitch it along. If you do, I don't know, 8 to 10 stitches, an inch, that's plenty. And then just make sure that you're folding over and hitting your seam allowance on the back. And that, my friends, in a nutshell, is putting the binding on your Quilting 101 quilt. And now you can use it for whatever season you made it for. And you can look forward to Quilting 201, which is going to use bias edges, half square triangles. Woohoo! See you later.